Wedding day itineraries are just fluffy things that wedding planners pretend are important, right? Wrong. If you don't have your itinerary written out on the day of your wedding, it's going to make the whole process a lot more difficult and complicated to manage. So why not make it easy on yourself and plan out your wedding itinerary for the entire day from when you wake up to when you go to bed? Hi, I'm Emily Declue, founder of The Joy Factor, a wedding and events planning company based in Toronto serving couples globally. And today we are talking about your wedding itinerary. Ooh, I love this part, the logistics, the planning, the looking at everything on a piece of paper and being like, yes, this is when this is happening, this is when this is happening, and I get so excited. By the way, I release new videos every Thursday, so make sure you subscribe or follow if you're listening to this on the podcast or watching the video on YouTube. Yeah, it's available in both places, and ring the bell to get notifications or sign up for my email list because I will notify you there too. All the different ways, whatever way works for you, baby. Okay, but for real, I'm serious about planning every single thing on your wedding day, like down to the minute. Because you need to be able to share it with people so that they're not like badgering you and asking you a bazillion questions. Also, it's just going to make everything flow a lot easier, and you're not going to be sitting there like trying to tie up your tie and be like, well, what time do I have to be there? Well, what time am we going to do that? You'll just know. There will be no guessing. You'll just have this piece of paper available to you. Hopefully your wedding coordinator on the day will be available to tell you all of this stuff as well, but knowing what's coming is a huge part of reducing stress and anxiety on your wedding day. So it's a win-win, right? As an event planner with over a decade of experience, I have come to love day of run sheets. That's just fancy event planner speak for itineraries. It didn't really take a lot of convincing for me to fall in love with them because I find it so comforting to know what's happening and like to cross things off the list and be like, yep, that's done. We figured it out. It's also really helpful to know like if something has to shift at some point during the day that you know what else is going to be affected. And it's a lot easier to be like, okay, we have to move the ceremony up 15 minutes because if we don't, then we're going to end up losing the car rental or something like that. It's just really easy to see everything at a bird's eye view and know what kind of contingencies you need to make just in case. They're also really good to hand out to people who are going to be helping you at your wedding. So that could be your on-site coordinator, that could be your bridal party, that could be your DJ, your bartender. It could be anybody that just needs to know what's happening on a minute-to-minute basis. And like I said, it's a win-win because people won't be asking you 1,000 questions on the day. Like, well, what time are we serving this and what time is that coming up? They could just look at the itinerary and they'll know without having to bother you. On your itinerary, you're going to list out things like where certain people need to be at specific times, like the couple should be ready at the door, waiting to walk in for the grand entrance at 7 p.m., for example. Or at 6 p.m., the photographer arrives, and the best man knows at that point to hand over a set of stationery that the photographer can then photograph. Photograph? I know words. Okay, let's get into why it's super important to have a super duper detailed itinerary for your wedding. Number 1, it will make it so much easier for other people to help you. Number 2, if something needs to shift in the schedule, it will be easy to see. And number 3, your wedding day itinerary may shift the closer that you get to your wedding because maybe you have a really cool idea and you want to incorporate it, or you're like, your mom's like, let's do mani-pedis in the morning, or if you have something that shifts anyway. It just makes it a lot easier to see how you will make adjustments when it's all laid out on a big piece of paper for you. Okay, now that you know why it's so important to have a wedding itinerary, I'm going to show you how I go about creating mine so it's easier for you and it's more joyful and fun. The first thing you're going to do is create a document. I like to do this digitally because, again, the itinerary will shift and it just makes it a lot easier to share it with people if it's digitally, getting feedback back and forth with your wedding coordinator, with your venue coordinator, any vendors that you might need to share it with in advance. You're going to do 3 columns. The first column is time, the second column is activity, and the third column is notes. It's very easy and very straightforward. So time is exactly what it sounds like. It's just what time a thing is going to happen. Activity is the specific thing that is happening, and then notes is anyone who is responsible for the thing, maybe any specific items that need to be available for that activity to happen. So for column 2, the activity could be traveling to the venue. It could be picking up the photographer. It could be getting your hair done. For column 3, it could be driver arrives. It could be order Uber. It could be anything that supports the activity that you are doing. For your time column, it's totally okay to get very granular with this stuff. Like maybe at 8:35 a.m., you're taking a shower. At 8:45, you're brushing your hair. If you need to get that granular, like you can do that. You could also just have a separate timeline just for you on the day, because you may not want to share with all of your vendors what time you had a shower earlier that day. Feel free to get super granular with the times. Like at 8:35 p.m., get out the cake, knife, and server so that at 8:45 p.m., you are all set for everything you need to cut the cake. Now comes the fun part, adding all of the different activities in. It could be really tedious and stressful to start right from the beginning of the day and end at the end of the day. So what I like to do is put in the big main things first. So you know you're going to have a ceremony. So put that in at the time it's happening. And around that, you can plan arrive to venue, and then backwards book Uber to get me to the venue. And then before that, make sure all hair and makeup is done. Everything is packed up. You can add in all of the little tiny details around the big specific things. You know you're leaving at a certain time from the venue, so you can say, you can work back from there and make sure the chairs are all packed up and stacked and ready to go 20 minutes before that happens, or different things like that. It's easier if you look at it from like a big bird's eye view from the big staple items that you're going to for sure have at the wedding, and then add in the smaller details. And again, things may shift. So you might decide that you want a later ceremony, and that might mean moving some other things around. But knowing that you have it all laid out for you is just going to make it that much easier. The day before your wedding, or maybe even on the day of your wedding, print out 10 copies. You might need some more. Make sure that all of your vendors have one available. I even went as far as highlighting all of the different things for each specific vendor that I had so that they would know where and when they were needed at a very quick glance. And then they also get to see all of the other fun things that I have added in. So that was a nice short and sweet episode. And all that to say, it is so important to have a day of run sheet or itinerary for your wedding day, because it will just make it go so much more smoothly, and it will take so much pressure and stress off of you. If you liked this video, please subscribe. It would mean so much to me. And if you're following along on the podcast, make sure you hit the follow button so you get new episodes when they drop on Thursdays. If you have any questions about planning your day of itinerary, you can drop them in the comments under the video, or send me an email at emily@joyfactorweddings.com, and I would be happy to help. I'll be back next Thursday with another wedding planning video, so until then, keep it joyful.